why you're here today. Right? So we're here to learn how to become more prepared for a career fair, and through their packets, we'll just go through our packets. On that front page is our before, during, and after. And so before any kind of career fair, I always recommend you to kind of research what options are out there. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of companies that are going to our career fair. How do you pick which one's which? You know, I would hate for you to go and talk to, Oklahoma Department of Human Services, knowing that they may want social services, social sciences related majors, but you're like, this is the first table I see, this is the first person I'm going to talk to. And so by researching what employers are attending, you can actually identify and tailor which companies you want to talk to, whether it be Paycom, PwC, Anheuser-Busch, other examples like that. So, when you are preparing for the career fair, I also recommend you to make your hire system. So when you go to hireosugrads.com, there you click on students and alumni, and on the left-hand side is hire system login. So you'll click on that, and then you'll either create an account if you haven't created one before, or you will just log in as you do. And that way you can, when you make your account or you log in, you can actually identify which companies are attending. And also, you get to learn a little bit more about which companies you might want to work for. So yes, we know that Paycom highly recruits a lot of our students, but maybe City. You want to go to Tulsa for an internship. Or maybe you want to work for Fast Enterprises who, can place you in Washington, D.C., can place you in Denver, can place you in Boston, things of that nature as well. And so you get to learn a little bit about the company and kind of where they can place you across the United States, or if you want to stay home, if home is Oklahoma, then you can stay here as well. And you also want to make sure that you get your resume reviewed. How many of you have made a resume before? How many of you have actually gotten How many of you actually gotten it reviewed by someone in career services? Awesome. And so I recommend you maybe some days before the career fair to actually get it reviewed just one last time to make sure you're highlighting all your important skills and assets. Come in. Now this is the career fair prep. If you want Paycom, that's going to be in the student union. That's going to be either on the 3rd or 4th floor. You're welcome. So, anyway, so you also, to prepare, you want to make sure that you print maybe 15, 20 copies of your resume. Now, I don't want you to think of it as like reverse trick-or-treating, right? Where you're just going to, everyone gets a resume kind of a situation. You want to be intentional about who receives your resume, because you want to make sure that you are going to work for a company that can actually make you thrive. And through the hire system, you can also identify which companies at the career fair have positions that are posted and which ones that they're interviewing for as well. And so when you're going through that notion, yay, here we go. And so when you're applying for positions, you actually get to approach those recruiters to say, my name's Lawrence Richardson. I'm a senior in computer science. I'm looking for a full-time position in programming. And I noticed that Paycom, you have a position that's a entry-level programmer position after graduation. Could you tell me a little bit more about that position? And as you're talking to them, kind of having that conversation, and then you can also let them know, oh, by the way, I noticed that position was on the hire system and I went ahead and applied. And more than likely that shows initiative, and that shows that you're really excited to really move forward with that organization as well. And then lastly, you also want to think about your professional dress. So what does professional dress look like? Slacks, blazer, suit, tie, skirt, heels, things of that nature as well would be really helpful. And then when you're researching the company, you can not only use the hire system and hire OSU grads, but look at their website, look at their LinkedIn profile, stalk them. They're going to stalk you. So make sure that you learn enough to have a conversation with them and to know what they do other than have jobs for you. And so you can look at anything that's trending, if you really want to get into detail, just look at maybe their stock trades, things like that. Or you can just look at the different kinds of opportunities they have and what that actually means. And lastly, if you happen to know that these employers are well connected with career services or faculty or other staff, I'd recommend you to talk to them too. I believe Cara sent out an email that she actually, Was it not catered? I'm missing a word. She basically filtered out all of the companies that are looking for computer science majors. Did y'all receive that email? Yeah, and so she actually kind of did the homework for you. Isn't she kind of awesome? So yeah, make sure you look through those lists because those are really important and crucial for you to identify which companies you want to work for too. And then lastly, you want to know what jobs are posted. And I would hate for you to, again, we'll use Paycom as an example. They're also recruiting for recruiter positions. So that's very a sales-based position. You're going out promoting why people should work for Paycom. I would hate for you to accidentally apply for that position and talk to them about that position without actually knowing any information about it. And so making sure what jobs are available and specifically knowing the differences of the jobs they post because they may post multiple jobs. And that way you can identify what's a good fit for you. So, your elevator pitch. I believe that's maybe on the second page of your handout there. And so, the elevator pitch is essentially a 30-second-ish speech about who you are. It summarizes your skills, your major, your experiences, and ways you can contribute to the company, but also what attracted you to them. And one thing that is coupled with an elevator pitch is your handshake. And so we want to make sure that our handshakes are firm and strong, but not overbearing. What I mean by overbearing, so there was a career service event on the lawn of Life Sciences East. I swear, every man that I ran into, they decided just to really vice grip me, and I was like, yo, I'm not offering you a job. There's no like power play. I don't know what you're doing. I'm just here to give you some information to throw you. Like, come on. But I've also have shaken hands with maybe a little bit of a limpy handshake. I like to call those princess handshakes where they end up kind of being like this as opposed to like this. And while yes, that might be, in another world appropriate, but here for career fairs, that's not ideal, primarily because you want to seem firm and confident. And so, again, not a vice grip, not limpy, somewhere in between as well. And so here we're going to talk a little bit about business professional clothing. So we talked, a basic suit and tie, conservative nature and color. And so black, charcoal, gray, navy, and somewhere in there. You can have some pattern, you can have a splash of color, that is okay too. But ultimately, one thing I do want to highlight is I want to make sure that you're comfortable in your professional attire. And so make sure that you kind of practice wearing it a little bit. Because if it's your first time wearing it and it's really uncomfortable and you go to the career fair, that's definitely going to show. And so make sure that you just kind of break in your suit, break in your shoes as well to make sure that you know how they feel as well. And let's see, yeah, you definitely don't want anything like flashy. So one example would be, there was a student a couple of career fairs ago. He wired his name tag to have blue and white lights for whatever reason. And as exciting as that is, no one remembered his name. Everyone remembered him as a kid with blue and white lights. And again, he's like, I really want to stay known. I want to be known for my skills. And actually, cool, you weren't known for your skills. You were known for a gimmick. And we all know kind of what gimmicks do. They take away from the essence of who we are. So making sure that your skills and experience and personality shine, and not necessarily, I'm just doing this because I think it's cool. And so being a little bit more intentional with a professional dress. And so here are some examples of professional dress here. And, we have your traditional suit and tie, very neutral colors, browns, blacks, that nature. Nothing too exciting, I'm not gonna lie. But remember that this is a career fair that you're just gonna wear for maybe an hour or two, and maybe an hour for the interview. So just think that if you're investing in a $150, $200 piece suit, that if it gets you the job, it gave you a salary, kind of a nature too. Now, let's say you absolutely do not have the means or access to get business professional clothing. The next step is business casual. And so what is business casual? Exactly, it is one step down. So technically, business professional clothing is, you have your suit, as in your suit jacket, your tie, a button-up collar, a belt, some pants, a skirt, or dress shoes. And just one step down would be not having a tie or not having a suit jacket. Things of that nature too. But that definition has kind of changed a little bit over time. I'm not even, business casual. I work, so But you can have a splash of color. You can have a little bit of accessory. You can have some makeup and some accessories that can a little bit more accentuating your personality. But again, you also want to remember that it cannot be the centerpiece of who you are. So one example would be I had a student that asked, well, I have like a baby blue suit. Is it okay if I wear that? And I said, well, it kind of depends. What kind of industries are you interested in pursuing? And it was more of the creative, the arts, kind of the rebellious positions, in the world. And so I said, that's perfectly fine. And it's like, now, if you're like magenta, that might be a little bit too loud. And so thinking about how to keep it a little bit more conservative in nature too. And also, one thing I forgot to mention is hair. And so with hair, you want to make sure for a business professional that you want to pull it back. I don't care how long it is. I don't care how short it is. You want to make sure that it's pulled back so your face shines and it doesn't get in the way. My hair is long and it has a tendency to fly in my face. And so that's not really attractive when I'm talking to a recruiter, pulling strands of hair out of my face while I'm having a conversation. So making sure that it's pulled back and that it doesn't, and that's well kept. And then your hair can be a little bit freer when it comes to business casual. And so here, this is a lot more lively. This is a lot more, personal to me. I mean, I'm more of a fan of business casual, but I recognize that not everyone can do that, especially for a career fair, and it also depends on what industry you're going into. So if you want to go into like banking and finance, that's a pretty conservative, pretty traditional environment. But if you eventually want to work for Interworks, they have a pretty progressive work culture where it might be okay to dress a little bit more loosely. When I say loosely, for business casual as well. And so, again, we have our magenta over here. We have a yellow skirt. We have kind of mix and match. We have some jeans. Personally, I'm not a fan of jeans in business casual, but, it just kind of depends on what that job role looks like, too. So what do you do after you network with everyone at a career fair? You got some business cards. What's your next step? Yeah, apply. You follow up, too. And so by following up, what do we mean? Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Basically, just tell them thank you. I appreciate you meeting with me today. I learned so much about this company. I'm really excited to go and apply for this position. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Something as basic as that. And so you do want to follow any application instructions. Some of them may not be, just by company policy, not allowed to post positions on the hire system for whatever reason, but they may say, here's my business card, apply online. And they may even say, once you submit your application, email me so I can keep an eye out for it. That's pretty cool because that also means they're probably going to be advocating for you when it comes to that application process. And also, sending a thank you note. And when I say note, it can be handwritten or email. I personally prefer email, but that's just because of who I am and I have atrocious penmanship. And so, if you also have terrible penmanship, I would recommend you to do an email, but if you feel that you have okay penmanship, I would recommend you to go ahead and write a card as well. It really doesn't matter, it just kind of depends on the situation. And then also, attend any info or connection sessions if there are any, like for example, PayPal's having one right now, so you can kind of follow up with them too. Here's kind of the anatomy of a thank you note, so essentially you have why, to remind you, or to remind them of who you are as a person, and that you met with them at a career fair. And then kind of making sure you do your best to connect with everyone that you've met with. And so if you talk to 2 different recruiters, get both of their business cards and tailor those email cards or emails. Tailor those emails. Wow, words. Tailor those thank you emails or cards, thanks, specifically to each person about what y'all talked about. And then basically just kind of summarize the key points that y'all talked about. I was really excited to connect with you on this. I'm really excited to hear that you have this type of work culture, things of that nature. One story from Paycom actually is there was a student that was talking to her, and I don't think she was even intentionally wanting to apply for Paycom. She just struck up a conversation because she was like a freshman or a sophomore, and they only recruit juniors and seniors for their internships and full-time positions. And they just kind of bonded over Taylor Swift. And then the next year, this student emailed her and saying, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but, we kind of talked about Taylor Swift at this career fair, and, I'm ready to start applying. I'm excited to see you at the career fair, things like that. And Colby said, I totally remember you. Be sure to come by and visit with me, and I'll be sure to connect you with one of our appropriate options that you have there. And then lastly, preferably within the 24 hours that you meet with them. Ideally, it would be maybe after you're done with the career fair, but I know classes, work, stuff happens. So maybe in the evening would be perfectly fine. 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night is okay. 2, 3 in the morning might be pushing a little bit, but y'all might be awake anyway. I'm gonna call myself. So, but just try to be cognizant of time too. So here's kind of an overview of what we offer. And so we do mock interviews. So how many of you feel comfortable with interviewing right now? Neat. Awesome. Some of us, okay, maybe. And so the more times you practice an interview, the better you get it. Interviewing is a skill. And so those atrocious questions like tell me about yourself or what are your strengths or what are your weaknesses, those are pretty awful questions, I'm not going to lie. I personally hate answering those questions. But the way that you can get better at it is to keep practicing it and getting coached advice from a variety of career consultants as well. And again, resume and cover letter reviews, and then we have free thank you cards and resume papers. So if you go to 360 Student Union, you can get up to 10 pages of resume paper a day, which is 50 a week, or 50 a week. So if you really want to, you can have resume paper for the rest of your life, totally, if you want. Or thank you cards we give in 360 Student Union. We also give 4 thank you cards a day, so that's 20. So if you're saving up for like a graduation reception, you could totally do that too. Or obviously utilize it for the career fairs and other networking opportunities too. And then lastly, we can help you navigate different opportunities in the higher system. Maybe everyone at the career fairs, whether it's SEAT or Kasner or business career fairs, you're just not interested in them. You want to go on the West Coast somewhere. All right, let's work together. Let's identify a place. Let's identify a company. And let's identify some strategies to get you successful, at least in interview, so we can kind of see what that looks like. And so here are some dates. Again, if you want to take a picture of this, I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning. So we have our SEAT Career Fair. I recommend any computer science students to go to the SEAT Career Fair. I recognize that it says SEAT. That doesn't mean that they don't love you. And so the reason why I say that is because it seems like it's only for specific colleges, but all majors can attend any career fair. And so our SEAT Career Fair, and it's got a wider time range from 9 o'clock to 3:30 in the Gallagher-Iba Arena, so it seems a little bit more class-friendly. And then our Business Career Fair, that's our all majors fair. That's 12:30 to 4:30 in also Gallagher-Iba. And then lastly, we have the Kasner Career Fair. If you want to work for an agricultural-based company, you betcha they're going to need people like you too. So I'd recommend you to connect with any or all of the employers on our career fairs. And again, instead of trying to meet all of the organizations on all of the fairs, try to come up with a top 10 list for every career fair as well. That second page on your career fair packet also highlights, I think, 1 through 12. And so you have sections on, or maybe your third and fourth page, I apologize. It's a table that you can say, I want to meet with Paycom, PwC, AtMex. I want to meet with these different companies. And you can do a couple of notes on why you want to meet with them, do some notes on what positions you plan on applying to as well. So it allows you to put everything on paper so you don't have to remember everything in your head. Because one thing is, when we're trying to remember everything, we might actually confuse one company for another, one position for another. I definitely don't want to put you on that boat either. And then lastly, we have mock interview dates, which are September 25th and 26th, where you actually go through an employer interview, obviously without a job offer, but if you're stellar enough, they may consider it as a pre-screening interview and ask you to come back for a full interview. So that's actually a really cool option. I have heard of that happen before. It wasn't during my time here, but it's actually pretty cool that you go in expecting to practice your interview skills, but you blow them out of the water so much, it's like, hey, why don't you come to Bartlesville and come interview for this position? That's actually kind of neat. Yeah, what's up?
So these mock interviews are with actual companies?
Yes, it's not with me. Yeah, I mean, as awesome as I am, I think employers are way better at interviewing because, I mean, this is what they do every day. They also get to provide all sorts of tips and tricks and things like that. So it is actual employers that recruit our students too. So definitely, that's a good option. So again, we have our career fair week next week, which is pretty exciting. And then we also have our mock interview days as well. And so, honestly, that's all I got for you. What questions do you have for me?
You mentioned both emailing and sending physical letters.
Right.
For thank you.
Uh-huh.
Which, I mean,
Which
physical
is
letters
preferred?
are probably preferred, or
I mean, it just depends on the person, really. Some people will say thank you. Like handwritten thank yous mean more because you took the time to do it, and I was like, but if you also look at the like general generation that says that, they're kind of used to kind of handwriting all the time. I'm a person that's a minimalist at heart, and so I despise physically. I mean, I love, of course, but when people get me birthday cards, I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? However, I have a variety of colleagues that prefer handwritten thank you cards, and they keep them and they pin them on a bulletin board. I'm like, awesome, you have so much stuff, and that just gives me anxiety because that's just not my jam, right? And so I would recommend you to do what feels best for you. So if it's an email, that's perfectly fine. If it's handwritten, that's perfectly fine too. What I like about email is that I can read over it a little bit, I can mull over it, maybe have a couple of people read over it as well. And then, because with the handwritten card, I always write in pen. So I was like, well, I just misspelled computer. Guess that one's done. And then so I just wasted a whole card. But that is a good question.
I've always heard that you're supposed to like ask questions, but what do you do if you don't know like anything about the company that you're talking to?
Okay. And so just ask some general questions, such as, oh shoot, what would be some good questions? What does an average day look like as a programmer or a web developer or whatever, insert job here, right? So there's that. Could you describe your company culture? And then also, what else? Those are some two good questions. If you're interested in more like kind of diversity stuff, how would you define the diversity of your something like that? What does a career development plan, or what does not career development, what does professional development look like? So if you start as like programmer level 1, do you stay there for 5 years and bump up to 2, or do you every year you have an opportunity to bump up, something like that? What are some expectations of an intern if you're applying for internships? For full-time positions, what do the first 90 days look like? And the reason why we see 90 days, do we know why we ask about the first 90 days?
Period where you can, because I've had jobs before like there was a 90-day period where like they can fire you without.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's also known as a probationary hiring period. And so they're just trying to see if you're worth it. I'm just going to call them out. And so the 90 days could be, what does it look like? What does training look like? Mentorship, guidance, and support look like as well. What is training? I already said training. So that 90 days is just essentially what are some basic responsibilities and obligations I have to do during that time. And so again, as I mentioned, or as you mentioned as well, that it's kind of that probationary period to determine do we want to keep you or not. Most people usually do make it through the 90 days because it's only 3 months. But I mean, I don't want you to be the person going in 45 days and then realizing that everything is not like you thought it was. So those are some good general questions too. And career fair packet does it have questions to ask? Yes. It might be on the first or second page. Oh boy, if it doesn't, that doesn't mean to ask.
There's a research
yes.
where
You have what are the initial expectations of new hire? What professional development opportunities does your company offer? How would you describe your office culture, and what types of projects do new hires interns work on?
Yep. So those are some good questions. Yeah. And of course, anything else like, what are some questions that y'all might be interested in asking? Sure, yeah.
I guess it would depend on who's there.
Right.
Like recruiters for the company might not actually be able to answer specific programming related questions. So that would make the difference in between.
Right.
And what tools and programming languages and stuff are used.
Yeah. Those are great questions to ask. And yes.
Another one is to ask how long they've had the program for. I've been to 2 internships where I was the first one and I had nothing to do.
Oh dear God, that sounds awful. I'm sorry. Wow.
So
Ooh, that's rough.
best not to be the first.
Yeah. or if they do roll out their first program, what are your expectations of this program, and what do you hope
We
the
need to have
intern to gain?
projects ready
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some? And so we'll kind of change that because do you have any projects? That's kind of yes or no, right?
Yeah.
We want to leave it open. So what are some projects you hope interns will work on? So that way it can be a little bit more flexible. That way. Man, I am so sorry. That hurts my heart a little bit. My God. Awesome. Again, this is how you make an appointment with me. So if you want to make an appointment with me, feel free to do so. We can do some mock interviews. We can do some resume critiques, cover letters, things like that. Although, yes, it's pretty, as a computer science student, your skills are highly sought after, especially because there's high job security with low amount of graduates in computer science across plethora of universities. I want y'all to be competitive, though. I don't want you to walk into any job interview and be like, I got this, and completely bomb it because y'all think I got it in the bag. I personally went through that experience, except I'm not a computer science major. So I thought, I had a lot of interviews in the bag. And just by that statement, I went through many interviews to show that I did have it in the bag, but I just thought I was top dog. I was an arrogant old asshole. So I remember that being strange too. So yeah, awesome. So here's my contact information. Again, feel free to take a picture. And I'll be up here for any individual questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you guys for coming. If you want to join our Slack or our group meet, I can just stay updated on what we're doing and when meetings are and stuff like that. Come talk to us afterwards. But thank you guys for coming.